So welcome to How to Live in Love. My name is Alexander Bell. And these talks are in partnership with the book of the same name, How to Live in Love, written by myself and available for free from my website, which is alexanderbell.org, where you will also find all the music I've composed over the past 20 years, also free to download, as well as hundreds of articles, many videos, and lots of other interesting things to help you. And that's all at alexanderbell.org. Now this talk is entitled Dystopia or Utopia. So obviously many things are changing in the world. Are they changing for the worse or for the better? Well, there's certainly plenty of evidence that suggests they might be intended for the worse, and I've been investigating such evidence for over 15 years. There are undoubtedly sinister agendas afoot in high places of power. However, I have a strong sense, an inner knowing of sorts, that such agendas will not be fully successful. I cannot tell you how or why I know, but I know it deep in my heart. Light will certainly overcome the darkness, but individually we each need to have faith in that being the case. Otherwise we, individually and collectively, will become pessimistic, fearful and without hope, only capable of seeing a bleak outlook. A dystopian society is built on such things and such attitudes, and it can only operate if fear and pessimism are the overriding human emotions in the general population. If you take a look at the general messages people are absorbing on a daily basis from the news, via the programs on their TV screens, and even via the so-called alternative news sources, they are clearly becoming more and more dark, pessimistic, and dystopian in their themes. The same is true in the pop music industry. More and more pessimistic messages are flooding into people's minds. All you have to do is carefully read the lyrics of the top 10 songs in the charts, and you'll see that there is an abundance of negativity, hopelessness, and pessimism flooding out through this medium. Almost every arm of the mainstream media, in which I include children's programs, video games, books, magazines, advertising, and so on, almost every arm is being harnessed to propagate a subtle dystopian agenda through the spreading of fear and pessimism in the minds of the population. However, we do not have to consume what the media puts on a plate for us. We can turn off its drip feed, and I strongly recommend doing so. Stop consuming information from your screens and start getting it from the source, from a place of greater wisdom that doesn't deal in fear and hopelessness. I always recommend that if people want to get a sense of what is true and what the future holds, then take a long walk in nature daily. Get away from the worldly noise, chatter, misinformation, traffic and distraction. Turn off your phone and take a holiday from the negative thoughts which only lead you to one place. Our mind and our heart are extremely precious beyond comprehension, and they are 100% our responsibility. No one else can make them places of peace, trust, and faith. That is our job. And if we don't do our job, our mind and our heart will be led by the media, by the collective attitude of the people around us, by the climate of negativity and pessimism that has already encroached on many people's minds. Has it encroached on yours? If it has, you need to remember that the future is not set in stone. There is immense cause for hope and optimism, but you need to let the positive energy of hope and optimism take root in your own heart. If you refuse to do this, you will only see a bleak future. You need to allow the shadows of negative thinking to be illuminated by the vision of what could be, a vision of global harmony and happiness. Yes, it may seem a long way off, a distant dream, but I assure you that that vision will come to pass. What we need to do is have total faith in that vision, and categorically refuse to allow it to be replaced by the vision of dystopia which the media is trying to imprint in our minds. The media is using every trick in the book. It is using every tendril it has: TV, film, radio, pop music, books, magazines, video games, advertising. It's using all these to attempt to steer our mind into its vision of negativity, darkness and hopelessness, making us feel like there is no way out, no escape from its oppressive dystopian agenda. But there is. The way out is faith. Total faith in the positive vision of peace and happiness that God wants us to hold in our minds. Because it is essential that we hold strong to that vision, even if we have no belief in God. That vision is what attunes our heart to where it needs to go and where it needs to be. As human beings, we need a goal, something to aim for and work towards, because that is how we are designed. In a very practical way, we have a vision or a goal that we want to reach, and then we move towards that goal by taking the appropriate steps. That's how we get through each day. But if we feel that each day is taking us closer to something dark, something that we really want to avoid, then we will stop functioning properly. We will disconnect from the primary source of abundant energy, which is our enthusiasm. We start to resist the world. We start to resist life itself and become dysfunctional through this resistance. Resistance is the opposite to enthusiasm. So this is obviously not good. And this is why it is absolutely critical that we trust we are moving towards a positive outcome. The media is doing its very best to try and convince people they are moving towards a negative outcome, a bleak and oppressive 1984-style dystopia. But it is not doing this because it's true. It's doing this because it's trying to convince you that it is true. But it is not. You are not destined to experience that. It is doing this because it wants your mind to go in a certain direction, so that you live more in fear, so that you consume more, and so that you are easier to manipulate. A person who is not afraid cannot be manipulated. A society which is not afraid cannot be steered in a direction where the government wants it to be steered. Society essentially becomes self-governing and does not need to be controlled and doctored by people in positions of power. Obviously, that is not remotely appealing to the people who hold positions of power because they like their power. They like it to mean something, and they will do whatever they can to maintain their power, which inevitably means manipulating and thus removing the power of the people whom they wish to rule. The less power the civilians have, the more secure the people in control feel. And essentially, they are control freaks who are very afraid of losing their power because it is the only source of their security. They are disconnected from love, and so they need a substitute, which is what power is. The need for security is the most primal need that every living creature has, and people do strange things in order just to feel secure. Now ultimately it is the presence of love and trust in divine providence and protection that brings the deepest sense of security. But if those things, that trust and that love, are absent, then lesser substitutes are always sought after, and this is totally instinctive. The lesser substitutes that are most commonly chosen are control and power, which essentially go hand in hand. If you want more control, then you have to exert more power, usually in the form of aggression, but also through clever manipulation. And this is exactly what is playing out in our world at present. But there is only one thing that we, as individuals, need to concern ourselves with: that we don't give our power away. Our power, which is essentially and actually a superior power, has nothing to do with control and aggression. Our power comes from our heart, and it is the power of goodness, of courage, of decency, of doing that which we know is right and honourable, no matter what the circumstances. It is a very noble power. It is the power of justice, love, and compassion. If we allow that to be usurped and overridden by the influence of fear, which essentially makes us act very, very primitively from our fight-or-flight instinct, then we lose our connection to the highest potential contained within each moment, within each situation, and within each interaction we have. We then will act from our animal nature rather than from our divine loving nature, which is where our true power exists. And so to bring this all back to our current situation, do we allow our minds to succumb to the negative visions of fear, dystopia, and pessimism being intentionally propagated throughout the media, and thus lose all of the power we actually have to experience something different? Now that doesn't sound so intelligent, does it? Or do we protect our mind, and thus our heart, from such negative visions, and hold strong to a different vision, a vision which does not come from the media, but rather comes from our heart? A vision that 99.9% of the global population wants to become manifest, even if it seems unlikely. It is a vision of peace, of happiness, of global harmony. Now, of course, to many people, this seems an unrealistic dream, but it is essential that we remember where the real power exists in this world. It is not in the governments, in the institutions of enforcement, such as the police or the armies. That is a lower kind of power, which we defer to when we forget where true power exists. True power exists in your mind, in your heart, a power so great and so phenomenally influential upon the very fabric of our reality that we would be absolutely astounded if we could grasp it, if we could truly see and understand it. But this power is only present in our mind and heart when we are using them correctly, when we are using them in harmony with love and compassion. As I mentioned earlier, faith is the key. If we relinquish our faith in the power of divine goodness and love, and we believe that the power of evil and darkness is greater and stronger, then we are simply surrendering the only power that is greater than the darkness. This is the least intelligent thing we can possibly do in our current situation. Now, obviously, faith doesn't immediately satisfy our need for material security when we feel we are threatened, because faith isn't about your material circumstances. Faith works on your heart, on the spiritual level, to bring deep security into the core of your being, on the most fundamental level, which is where you most need it. This means that no matter what your outer material circumstances may be, no matter how challenging they may seem, there can still be peace in your heart. Nothing other than faith has the power to maintain unshakable peace and trust in your heart, because it operates independently of the material world. There is security in your heart not because of your circumstances or your bank balance or your relationship with your partner or anything else in the material world. There is security in your heart because you have faith in the power of goodness and love to triumph and to protect you and guide you. There is security in your heart because you sense that your trust alone is enough to keep you in the path of light and providence. Those two small words, trust and faith, mean success or failure, triumph or defeat, freedom or bondage. I'm asking you to have faith and trust that the divine forces of goodness are more powerful than the forces of evil and darkness. Now, your logical mind may come up with 1,000 reasons why this is not the case, and our logic will always attempt to talk us out of having faith. This is why we need to dethrone logic and put faith on the throne of our mind instead. And then we will listen to the voice of faith first, and then logic comes second. Without faith, we are mere victims of our circumstances and all the things which are beyond our control. Logic is only what we know, but faith is what could be. Strive to develop unrelenting faith in the vision of a positive transformation on earth, no matter how things may look, because your faith will inspire the faith of others, and darkness will be dispelled, slowly but surely. There is no other way, because darkness must first be vanquished in our own mind and our heart. This is the responsibility of each one of us, to allow the darkness in our heart to be replaced with light. No one else can do this for us, and we have to want to let go of the darkness, let go of the fear, the insecurity, the anger and the pain. Logically, you may think it makes little sense to embrace a light when everything around us is saying, be afraid. But choosing fear is not logical. It is the worst decision we can possibly make. So be intelligent and choose to have faith and hope in your heart, in spite of the fear-mongering media and the ideas it wants to put in your mind. The future is destined to be much brighter than we think, I assure you. So thank you for listening to this talk, and I'll just remind you that you can download my free book, How to Live in Love, from my website, which is alexanderbell.org. Thank you for listening. I wish you well, and God bless you.